r/nosleep. Posted by you/shatter_their_world. Helena the Clown. Part 7 to finale. Hi friends. Part 1 to Part 6. Video link in description. Thank you friends. With the horrible things I have said in the next post, I wonder how many of you are still here, to read. I hope I shall never have to put into words such things again, until I finish all my adventure. But who knows what is out there. Somewhat still shaken by those things, I went to my friend Adrian, the antiquities dealer. That is his secondary job. His main job is in call center, owned by some French company. He lives alone on an apartment on Romana Square, pretty close to the center of Bucharest. We have met at our university studies. We followed different paths afterwards, but kept in touch. I knew no one I could go at the moment. I had saved in my phone some information from the newspapers from the 1920 ties, to talk to him. I arrived sometimes late in the evening. I have found him on a very chill mood, like he was most of the time. I sunk myself in his sofa and opened my phone. He came with the cups of Thai tea. "Are you okay, Rux? You look. I don't know how to put it." He started. "No, I guess I am not." I replied. "You know, about a week ago all this would have sounded like some horror movie, or some creepypasta online. After a few hours of immersion, I would be back. Am I losing my mind?" Adrian had a quirky look. I am pretty sure he would have replied, "Yes," but he bit his tongue and he said, "Let go. It makes no sense. You shall hurt yourself for nothing." I looked him in the eye. "You know, if I'm right, and I am probably right, you made something really dumb. You sold that diary to someone who might be able to use the details of the sorcery in there to actually attempt some things. I am thinking not just of what I read, but of what could have been in the pages you have not scanned." To tone down the harsh words, I put up a stupid smile, a tired smile. He chuckled. "It is in your mind, you want it to be true. Relax, it cannot be true. The butcher was a madman, who knows what drugs he took. I do not know what substances were available back then around here. Opioids were used, like morphine. But coke or something stimulant was more likely involved. He was very creative and all." After a moment of silence, he continued, "No, that could not be real. Everything has a reasonable explanation. Take each part at a time. The attack on that guy could have been performed by some madman in drag. Who else could go walking around at night, dressed in Belle Epoque dress on the streets of Colentina, at night? The old lady eased her loneliness telling you some urban legends from her youth, perhaps embellishing them. Yeah, there is a clear urban legend about all that. You know how people are." I started to laugh muffledly. I stopped after a few seconds, then I said, "You know, the period when she was at the circus. Before the Obor Fair times. I have found an article on a waltz Helena and Jameson performed one evening. People were mind blown. Many did not knew that Helena was supposed to a puppet, an inanimate object. The others who knew what she was supposed to be were, many of them, scared. They said it was no way one could make a ventriloquist doll to move like that. Unless it was something supernatural. My guess is that, since then, the management of circus became scared of all this and they were eager to get rid of all. They pushed some limits. There were too many people who saw all those with their own eyes. Have you thought that, at least in some episodes, there was an actual person pretending to be Helena? A living dancer? The simplest explanation of all. Awkward silence. It could, theoretically, have sense. He continued, all the massacres could have been committed by multiple people, dressed like the doll from the circus. There have been other similar phenomenons in other parts of the world, like the spring-heeled Jack in London, that was proven to be the work of multiple individuals on a costume, during some 40 years. Yeah, the spring-heeled Jack, probably there was something real there. A very complex phenomenon, perhaps Jameson was connected somehow? And, he continued, what do you think you saw that night? That woman? Perhaps that was a prankster. Perhaps there are a team of pranksters, some work on the street lights, one of them wears a dress. That was funny. It really made me laugh a bit. He looked abashed. You know, I said. All things, taken into account, could be like you said. But there is one thing, one very important things. If we look at the big picture, how things fit, it becomes harder and harder to see things like that. He wanted to say something, but he could not find his words. Finally, he replied, I think you should take a day off from work and spend the night here. Some rest may do wonders. I have a better idea. I have my car. The night is young. I shall contact Helena. You are insane. We do not know what kind of people are those behind this and what could be the consequences. Nia, I replied in a good mood. Nothing ordinary seems to be here. If it is to be harmed, at least it would be by something interesting. And, honestly, I am put an end to my obsession, if I can. If this has a natural explanation, I want to see it now. And get on with life after it. He looked abashed again. Okay. We take your car, mine has some issues. I shall stay next to you, and call the police, if necessary. It's a deal. So, we went to Colentina and parked the car near the place I had parked the last time. We waited. To pass time, we talked about our past, our lives, politics, etc. Almost nothing about the Helena phenomenon. Adrian felt sleepy, so, at some point, I let him go to sleep and kept scrolling on the phone. Then, after a while, the phone started to flash. I could not make the flash go, and it went dead at once. I knew I had enough battery. Then, the lights on the street went out. This was it. I decided not to put Adrian at risk, so I left the car and the door open, in order not to wake him up. I was standing on sidewalk and waited. In a few minutes, I saw the woman in black coming to us, just like the last time. Dread came over me. Any doubt Adrian has placed in mind was gone at that point, when the dread came. I felt like going back to the car, wake Adrian up and drive as fast as possible away from there. A strong voice in head screamed to get away, that I am in mortal danger. And the voice was probably right. But I took a deep breath and went to Helena. She saw me and, at 1 meter distance, we stopped and looked at each other. Yes, this was not living human being. I do not know how to start describing her. She looked like a corpse walking, with a slit face above the chin, just like a ventriloquist doll. That clown makeup or makeup-like tattoo was part of the face, it seemed. She looked at me with those eyes. How shall I say? My heart went beating up, I fought my brain not to went to panic mode. Hello, Helena. My name is Ruxandra. Awkward silence. If it weren't for the terror in me and in the air around, I guess it would have been embarrassing. If she was human, of course. I forced myself to speak. I know about you. I know some things about you. About your past and. I did not know what to say. Sometimes, she looked just dead, sometimes she looked like a nightmare hooking my soul. But, probably, she was startled and did not know what to say. She broke the silence. Her unhuman, cold voice was hissing gently, like a snake, but words were clear. What do you want? Don T, you know that, if you are not right, I shall end you? I stood my ground. She continued with a calm and cruel tone, are you naughty? Are you a good person? Is there anything bad you do, you shall tell me. Now. She was piercing through my soul. I knew that, if I lie, she will know. What was I thinking, giving myself to the claws of death? I brought it on myself. But, if I panic and ran, it is game over. This predator shall chase me and take me down. So, breath in and replied trembling, I do not know. Probably not. How come? She continued sharply, I am a TV journalist. And, as a TV journalist I'm paid to lie. To deceive people. And I do it on a daily basis. There are people who pay me to keep people away from the truth. I am guilty of that. She was moving slowly towards me, pushing me gently into a fence. People get hurt because of you, right? Yes, they do. I guess. They are kept not to revolt, not to be free. I serve the wicked. At this point, I was shaking pretty deep. I do not think I was crying yet. And are you willing to change? She continued, taking out one of the bayonets in her right, gloved hand. I was against the fence, at this point. She moved the knife under my tongue, slowly, ruthlessly. I do not know. I wish I was. Honestly, if you let me go, I would probably continue doing what I do. You can kill me, if you want. This is what you do. But, there is something I can promise you. I can try to change. I do not know if I shall succeed. But I shall try. I promise. I was crying at this point. She took the bayonet and started to cut, gently, my skin. She continued to make cuts down to the chest, slowly and calmly. Blood was coming out, I felt it. But I did not care. I waited for the final blow. She let the knife down and came close to my face. She opened her mouth and, from behind those black lips, her sharp fangs became visible. She touched my neck with them, just touching, then pinching. I knew there are predators who play with their prey before taking it down. When I felt the fangs piercing the skin, I knew it was over. I closed my eyes and waited for death to come. But death came not. She moved away. The bite was only skin deep. She looked deeply into my eyes with some weird curiosity. Her expression has changed. I do not know how to put it. I was crying like a baby then, I promise I shall try. I swallowed my tears. She put the knife back at her belt. Then she came closely to my ear, I started to shiver even more now. She whispered, then go for it. She backed away a bit. Thank you, I replied. I turned my back and moved away slowly towards the car. She came behind me, from a distance. Calmly, I have entered the car. Adrian was still sleeping. Helena moved on to her business. Helena the Clown. Part 8. Yes, Targul Mosalar, the fair, the carnival of Obor. I never thought it was so fun. I do not know what year it was when I end up there. I found myself at the gates. A lot of mud, I have to tell you, but the carousel was there, just outside the gate. Looked fun, but I dared to go into it. So, I got in. It was dusk. But people were filling it. It seems it was going to be a long evening. I have not seen anything like that on Romanian soil since I was a child, in the 1990 ties. Yep, now they were the 1920 ties or the 1930 ties. Do not ask how I end up here. I do not know. And I did not care, for the moment. Barbecues. Children. Carnival. Folk music. And mud. Most of this place is in 2020 ties a parking lot. Pathetic. Now, it is an open space. Back in the days, when I was walking, it had small alleys and shacks. Popcorn is really good. This what people would call bio, in the 2020 ties. And, oh yes, Braga is very tasty. Sweet. Braga it is a type of sweet beer, alcohol-free, that was cheap. Even children drank it a lot in Romania, in the elder days. Western-styled, modern beverages have long since removed it. Most Romanian children never actually heard of it, the name only remains only in the expression cheap like Braga, but they do not know what it means. Too bad. All in all, life is good for me, right now. Night is young, summer is here. Sky seems clear. Why shall I care about my life, anyway? Yep, there is a freak show. But I do not want to see it, my modern mindset considered this an abuse. One circus found its way in here, a little boy with a dirty gray shirt tries to sell newspapers. I refuse, then he says, Ma I'm Don T forget to see Sikanika. He is the best clown ever, I swear. I smiled to him, the best ever? Are you sure? Yes, Man. You can go to Helena too, but be careful. She is scary. A chill took me, in all the summer evening night. The boy left. Yes, he is right, she is scary. She asked me too if I am naughty. Suddenly, at the beginning of an alley, I see a young gentleman. Dressed in what seemed to be old stage clothing, for dancers, like Fred Astaire, but worn down, a bit. Yep, he has some clown makeup on his face, in dark colors. Not the first time I see this color scheme, but now is more discreet. He greets me with his hat, silently, then he shows me an alley to enter. He seems polite, but the expression is weird. Hard to comprehend. He seems benevolent, so I follow him. I get to a place where the alley meets another alley. I stop in my tracks, something in the back of mind tells me to stop. People start to be less and less. The clown gentleman stops and makes a sign to proceed. He does not like it that I stop, but he does not do anything. In my right, I see another clown. A woman, this time. White, dirty dress. Hard to pinpoint the style. Blonde, she has dark eye makeup, really dark and heavy that makes a clear contrast with her, virtually, white skin. Almost shines. She looks, somewhat, like porcelain. Like Helena looks like wood. Her expression looks a little frustrated, anxious, but braces herself, looks at the gentleman, having a short eye contact. They have some gestures one towards the other, then both show me to walk on. What do they want? Folk-styled carnival music still heard in the background. Suddenly, someone grabs my left arm, from the side. Startled, I look and I see a male clown, in his 40s, who looked grotesque. Some wrinkles, somewhat angry, dirty, strong. He has typical red hair on a partially bald head you see in some clowns, but this is natural on him. I do not scream although I had got the impulse. With a raspy and impatient voice, we are already late. Get on with it. The clown gentleman speaks in an unnatural voice, how else, but calmly, she will go. There is no escape. She shall face her. Face whom? I ask, in a nervous tone, even if I know almost certainly who I was about to see. Whom? Answers a little edgy and astonished the blonde woman. You shall face our queen. Our mother. They signal me to get going. I continue, although fear seems to rise in my heart more and more. We get to a tent. A circus tent. It did not look very large from the outside, but on the inside it looked much wider. The interior was a small arena, decorated by the crimson velvet or velvet imitation of the walls of the tent. The stands were empty. In the middle, there's some other clowns, some darker, some weirder, they also were frightful. They were gathered around the throne. On the right of my side and the left of the throne there was a barbecue prepared, but no meat on it, yet. There were some folk music players, the type that in Romania are called latari, playing the weird music I have mentioned earlier. They were frightened as well, of course, but they kept going. Also some barrels of something alcoholic. And, close to throne, some tools. Knives, forks and others. On the throne, in the most majestic way I ever saw her so far, there was Helena. She wore a different dress from she different wore, more formal, more imposing. She had some kind of discreet crown on her head, hard to describe. At her feet, a strange huge black hound, with red eyes, was sitting. He started to growl at me, but Helena petted him on the back and calmed him down. She looked at me like she was piercing me with a spear. I knew this was it. She called to me in a cold, calm voice, "Come closer." I started to shake. Because I was sitting idle, she continued, a little more authoritatively, "Now." I went there shaking. Fear was getting deeper on me. I executed. I knew it was, probably, too late. Helena spoke, "Remember what I told you when we met? What you promised?" I was shaking. I could not say anything. She continued, "You know it very well. So, it does not make any real sense that the real court should lose too much time. You have not kept your promise. I pronounce you guilty. The sentence is death. It shall be executed now." Yes, that was it. She came down from the throne and called the bald wrinkled clown, Galma. Galma in Romanian means hillock, grab her left. Then she turned to the porcelain female clown, Zerva. Take the blood bowl and grab her right. They complied and took me to her front. We met in between. Zerva put the bowl on the ground. "On your knees," almost shouted Helena, making me break and scream. Galma forced me on my knees. Helena took the bayonet from the belt in her right hand, pushed my head into the ball and whispered like a ice snake, "You had your chance. Now you are gone." I felt the cold blade touching my throat, my whole being scream, and then I woke up. Adrian came fast to the bed. I was shaking, crying and covered in sweat. He later told me I was sickly pale. He embraced me and tried his best to comfort me. It was one of those nightmares that I could not shake of saying to myself, it was just a dream. It felt strong, like a new warning or something else. Perhaps I need to keep my promise to Helena. And probably a break from work, due to medical reasons. For the next day, I looked at myself. I was indeed pale and looked sickly. I think I need to share with you what I had discovered in an archive of newspaper a few days ago. But first, I need to tell you that, at some point, the burned remains of La Ie were discovered under some power lines in the north of Bucharest, near Crangasi. The power plant of Grozavesti was just to the south, and the power lines of immense voltage, some 60,000 volts, I remember, were close. One night, something was heard high, on the lines. Like something was burning, roasting up. The next morning, the charred remains of La Ie were found at the ground. Somehow, he made his way up, to the lines, or someone dragged him or his corpse up, to fry him at 60,000 volts. If he was still alive, it was one of the most horrific deaths possible, worse than being burned alive. My guess is that Helena did it. She was able to drag him up and electrocute him. I guess she was able to avoid being electrocuted herself. I do think that, no matter how hard it was to kill her in her undead, unhuman state, she would survive that kind of electric power. The last entry in his diary was that Jameson was preparing for a new experiment, to extract bile from living human bring through tubes, like they do on black bears in China. Helena promised a surprise for her beloved uncle. There was an oil refinery just north of the city of Ploiești, a zone highly rich in oil reserves. The director of it, Marculescu, an aspiring cabinet minister, had made some dirty contracts that allowed several foreign companies, one at the time, to actually extract oil without paying anything to the Romanian state. More than that, all of them sold it back to Romania, at a higher price. First the Soviets, then the Germans, then the Americans. For years this went on. There were some scandals in the press. The official explanation was, the general public, the public opinion, whoever is not a specialist in high economy, cannot understand why this is necessary. Some kind of inspector turned a blind eye on this, although he knew. He gave to a newspaper an interview, where he explains how he lost his eyesight in a traumatic experience. He and Marculescu were kidnapped during a visit in Bucharest, knocked unconscious and brought to some king of circus tent, where there were some monstrous clowns. The settings and the beings involved looked, more or less, like what I saw in my nightmare. Helena came from her throne, in her cold authoritative state, and stated, "You have been brought here to be pronounced guilty of your despicable crimes. I shall convict you, of course, But we need to make some things clear at first. Then she said to the inspector, "You knew all had happened. All that this scumbag did. You said nothing." "No, that is no true, I could not have done it." Started to lame a bit the inspector. Helena silenced him. "You are not fooling no one. It is well known, I know the documents. The judges released you because they were bribed. By here is a new court. That cannot be bribed. You shall be sentenced to death. Anything you want to say in your defense?" "I do not know what you want, who you are, but I do not care," started Marculescu. The tone was scared, but also deeply arrogant. "You circus freaks, you abominations of nature, dare to judge me? The gendarmes will come of shoot you all. Abominations. You who I am, freaks? If you dare to touch me one more time, I shall." Helena stopped him with anger. "Listen up, you scumbag. Until they came, we shall be finished. We have a barbecue tonight and we are just waiting. It is be delicious for all us clowns in here. Both the queen and her subjects. But, yet, I wonder, how could you live with yourself, dirtbag? Traitors like you destroy the lives of the people, steal the future of children. How can you live with yourself? Explain to me." Helena seemed less calm than I knew her, like she was unleashing something tormenting her from inside. Marculescu cried in anger, "Shut up. You are lying, Al, those are lies made by crooks." He was shouting, he only made it worse for him. "You know," said Helena, "I wanted to kill you pretty swift. Now I think I shall split you open first and get your liver." Then, the inspector started crying. "Yes, I did it," he said. "I turned a blind eye. I cover all he did. Please do not kill me. I have got a family at home." Helena stood quit for a time, thinking. Then, she continued, "Continue with details. Tell how you did it." The inspector started describing the process in chaotic, but conclusive manner. Marculescu started shouting at the inspector to shut up, to stop lying. Galma went to him and silenced him by force. Helena deliberated some minutes, then came out to the end to the inspector. "You admit your guilt at least. This is why I shall let you live. But you need to be punished nonetheless. You decided to turn a blind eye. So you will be blind to the rest of your life. I sentence you to have your eyes removed. This is the first thing that it will be put into action." Then turned to Marculescu. "Because of traitors like you, the country falls apart. People lose their income, they lose their homes. And not just in this country. Without the axe handle, the forest could not have been brought down. At least not too easily. So I sentence you to death. As I said, you shall get your liver removed as you are still alive, then, after you expire, you shall be eaten." She paused for a bit. "I know very well how to make a delicious barbecue. I used to have an uncle who was famous for his sausages, kebabs and other works. So, let us get into action. Zerva." She pointed toward the inspector. "Remove his eyes and place them on the barbecue." The inspector started screaming. Zerva came to him with some kind of scissors or forceps, screaming in a deafening way. She proceeded in removing the eyes ruthlessly. The inspector screamed in pain, the blood was covering his clothes. The crushed eyes went into the barbecue. The inspector no longer saw anything by now, he was in great pain, but he still heard some of the things that went next. Helena commanded, "Galma and Zerva, get this bastard face up, down on the floor." Marculescu kept shouting, but at no use. Some horrible scream was heard, his abdomen was cut open, it seems, the liver removed and placed on the barbecue. "Yes, some work needs to be done, all of us shall help each other in doing it, let's not let just Galma and Zerva at this." They slaughtered him there, then started the barbecue. At some point, one fierce hand grabbed the inspector, pushed out of the tent and led him on the alleys of the Obor Carnival. All the other clowns appeared after La EA was gone. Who knows, maybe Jameson needed some new henchmen. Their exact number is not clear, some testimonies speak of more clowns, some of less. They did not seem to have been modified to look like ventriloquist dolls. The female Zerva was, somewhat, modified to look like a doll, it is not sure why. Some of them were seen working at other circuses and fairs in Bucharest. I am pretty sure all of them used to be human, at some point. I do not know how similar were to Helena in nature or modifications from humanity, but it is interesting that they called Helena their queen and mother. They were seen alongside Helena on her murderous missions, some did not seem to be justified as assassinations, like first killings connected to Helena. One incident I think it was interesting. Back in the 1930s, there used to be on Kalia Plevnai, near the Romanian Opera House, on the back, 2 football, soccer, stadiums at some point. Both stadiums were demolished later on, one of them was replaced by a park, the other of buildings of the campus of the University of Bucharest. Corruption charges and involvement in criminal activities were present regarding the two sports club. As you might expect, sports hooligans were present back in the day, and that lead to fights. One evening, after a match being finished, the public was coming out. Some fight between the hooligans was, probably, about to start, when someone noticed a group of strange people waiting at the other side of Kalia Plevnai. Their descriptions match Helena and the others. Zerva was seen, Galma was seen, the gentleman-like clown was seen, also others. They held some guns, it was not clear where did they got them from. Some hooligans were scared, other angry, some both. The clowns started to talk to each other, the hooligans as well. It seems some hooligans were ready to gather a crowd and confront the clowns. Helena made a sign towards the others and they left the area, going toward the Sismigiu Park. It seems they were afraid. Perhaps the crowd was too big and things could easily go wrong. They might have been monsters, but they were not stupid. At least Helena was not. Later, in the evening, Adrian brought me a tea and we started to think what to do. You look sick. Something has happened to you. I wonder what. Perhaps you should go to a doctor? No, I do not think a doctor could, truly, help me. I don't know. Adrian thought a bit then, with a changed tone, he said something I could not have imagined he will say, you know that priest? That father, the exorcist, who made headlines a few months ago. He is in village in Yalamitsa, not very far from Bucharest. Father George Baca. You went to him as a reporter. Perhaps he can help you. Perhaps he can help us. I turned to him, looked in his eyes, contemplated the idea, sighed and said, okay. We shall do it. But next morning, I placed my head on his chest and closed my eyes. Helena the Clown. Part 9. The road up to the Yalamitsa village was quiet. The village was quiet in itself. Just endless fields around, as you see, more or less, in southern Romania. A few people on the streets, but not too many. Perhaps the people were working. This road outside of Bucharest was, clearly, good for me already. I remembered Father George Baca from that case of a possessed little boy from a village, close to the Ramnicu Vilcea city. He was called to deal with the issue, not being the first time. Father George already had a reputation of a warrior in demonic possession, or haunted locations. He said several times that all priests can do what he does, having the same grace received at ordination. Yet, his fame grew, it is not sure why. He has got involved in several cases, people got to know him, and the story arose. I, for myself, believe that, although he said any priest could do what he does, that he has a lot of experience in this matter. That little boy was tormented pretty well back then. I was supposed to say on camera that no real signs of possession were present, but the case was too clear. So, I remember I've made a compromise. I toned down the gravity of the possession on camera, but did not deny it. Tried to show an open mind, but my boss scolded me for not obeying the orders to lie. I was about to lose my job then. But I did not. I admit I was a little scared back then, talked to Father George a little after it. I remembered I have asked him about his last name. He told me it is Albanian in origin, that he descends from an Albanian soldier who converted from Islam to Orthodox Christianity and fled to Romania, to be safe from persecution. He told me that the little boy was affected by a family curse, that someone from that family seems to have brought some curse on the family. He also said that the boy is a martyr of his own, that the best solution would be for the family to accept the curse and its causes, to make things right, in order for the child to be free. What I saw that day made a believer in the supernatural, I admit. When we stopped at the church gate, I was hopeful. Not incredibly hopeful, but hopeful. We entered the yard, then entered the church. It was open, but nobody was there. I have rarely went to church until now, I have to admit. Never been a true non-believer but, like most people in my country and, I guess, like most of the Christians, I went to church on events, like weddings, baptisms, funerals. At best on Christmas and Easter. Or, in some extreme conditions, when I was in need. We found, eventually, the lady who worked at the church shop and we were told the parish house was the first house down the road. We went there. It was a small village house, one level, classical architecture for the area. There are some old houses in Bucharest as well like this. Father George was in the yard, working. He did not wear his priest cassock, but work clothes. Almost 60 years old, but still a strong man for his age, tall and pretty imposing. His beard was neatly trimmed, and the cheeks were clean shaved. He greeted us and opened the gate. Father, I begun, I do not know if you remember me. We met during the case of, censored name and location, I was the reporter who talked to you back then. Yes, I remember you now. You lied on camera. Yes, I did it. That is my job, to lie. But I want to tell you I have not lied enough, and for that I was about to lose my job. I was supposed to say there was no possession and that you were a medieval con man. He showed a very small smile at the corner of his lip. Is that so? Better than doing all the harm to the end. But let's see, why are you here? Come on in. Thank you, Father. This is my good friend, Adrian. After shaking hands with Adrian, he invited us at a table in the garden, near the house. He served us from his stock of raka, a traditional drink from the Balkans, made from an asin, that in modern Greece is called ouzo. A pretty strong alcoholic drink, similar to whiskey or scotch at this regard. Fortunately, like the similar Romanian suica, made from prunes, it was drank in here from minuscule glasses, and those were only half full. My relatives from Albania ship me 2 times a year raka. Made by them. Always prefer it to tsuika. Far more flavored. I usually do not drink strong alcohol, but now I felt like doing it, and, since I was not driving, I guess it was okay. On a hot summer day, even in shade, it had a strange refreshing effect on me. So, he started, what brings you here? Most likely you need my services that I am famous for. Isn't he it? Yes, Father. I replied. I think I am in trouble. I showed him the scars on my chest and neck, especially the bite mark. He looked intrigued and silent. What caused all this? I do not know how to start, honestly. But I think I better showed you what I have already posted online, on a blog I have started after getting involved in all this. And I showed him on the phone all the things I have already posted in here. I found it easier than re-explaining all from scratch. He read all in silence. He was intrigued, but also seemed doubtful. After finishing, he looked at me thoughtfully and asked, do you have that diary as well? Yes, I do, I replied and showed him the PDF file. He read parts of it. It was quite long. He seemed really interested of what was there. At least, he stopped reading, handed me then phone and started. Yes, I know some things about the mass hysteria or whatever it was back then regarding the ventriloquist doll from Obor. You are right, there was a lot of cover-up of all that, you are right on that. Gordon Jameson was person many spoke many about. I, honestly, do not know what to say about all this. My experience, I have never met something like this. And, I am telling you, I have seen a lot. Some even darker and far more scarier than you have experienced lately. But this seems odd, it does not fit what we know about the works of demons. I mean, both of what he have from the holy tradition of the Orthodox Church and my own experience. But, indeed, demons can be allowed to take many shapes and their works can be very different. They are masters of deception, although they are not allowed by the Lord to disguise perfectly, at least a small detail is left out, in order to allow people who want to see the truth, to see it. And what do you want me to do? This left a little confused. I was expecting for him to know what was supposed to be done next. Father, I do not know. I am connected to this. I think we should try to end the phenomenon, somehow. I cannot take my mind of it. Like something draws me in. You see, he replied, evil can cause addiction. You see, a priest I once knew said that starting to fight with demons when they do not attack is like discovering a wasp nest deep in the forest. The wasps do not attack you but you, out of panic, you start using a stick to startle the nest. You shall be attacked then. And, even if you manage to escape, you shall be responsible of the harm that comes upon you. Of course, you are attacked without provocation, you need to defend yourself. The Lord has allowed you to experience it for reason he knows. As I see it, it seems you got into this yourself. You could just leave after you were sent by the network there. Now, you start to suffer consequences. I was not expecting this answer, I admit. Perhaps, he was right, in a way. But what the people who live there? Aren't we supposed to try, at least to clean the place of any evil activities? He closed his eyes for a few seconds and chuckled. Aren't we all supposed to change the world? We are. But most of us do not do it. Most of us cannot even do it, even though, we have to at least try. Especially us, priests and bishops, who are supposed to descend from the holy apostles, more than lay people are supposed to do it. But who does it? Mostly nobody. This is why this world is in the state it is. This is why people suffer. This is why 2 little girls became the victims of a sociopath evil sorcerer. God rest their souls. Yet, for yourself, my guess is that you should back off while you still can. Perhaps it's too late. But Father, I do not know how to say, I feel like I cannot back off. That I am meant to get this over. I do not know. I muttered. He replied with his baritone voice, you see, our feelings can easily be deceived. By the evil ones. Most people are not aware that the evil ones, like angels, are around us most of the time. They send us thoughts, like bait. We are not aware of that, We take the thoughts as our own and the bait starts to do its work. We start to get emotionally involved and we may take them as a sign from God or who knows that we need to do certain things, but it is the work of evil ones. This is day-to-day life. But sometimes, things can get even serious. Sometimes we can get false visions, sometimes dreams from the evil ones, and we can fall into a deceit so deep, that the entire reality is distorted around us and our mind becomes a slave of the deceit. I was not aware of all these things, the Father felt right, somehow, yet a voice in my head said that what I have came for needs to be done. Was it a deceit? I do not know. But something in heart spoke. Please, Father, I do not know how to put this. I need this. I think. Perhaps things have already gone too far to back off. Maybe it sounds silly and childish. He looked at me in silence then, when he eventually talked, he said, perhaps things have too far. Tell me, do you have a confessor? Do you confess regularly? Do you go to church, at the Holy Liturgy, where Christ himself comes to earth into the Holy Communion, in the shape of bread and wine? No, Father, I do not. I admit. I know, that I was supposed to, but I felt like a child caught doing something not right. It felt bad for me, although this was so different from what Helena did to me. Father, I continued, you see, most people are like that. You know why? Because life seems to go well or, at least, go on, without God. Without faith. Without. I stopped. Yes. He replied. You are right, this is how most people are. Yet, God often allows things to happen to them precisely for them to look for Him. You know, I have said this to people so many times already. As His priest, it is my duty to call you to God. More than fulfilling desires of fighting wars we were not supposed to fight. After a few seconds of silence. You know, all priests can do, theoretically, what I do. At need. Some priests became living myths, so to say, on this, because of people. Some people ask them, then they recommend them to other people and, if the priest is not careful, he could become involved in something with dire consequences. I was young and passionate when I started all this work with exorcisms, demon fighting and so on. I soon got recommendations from person to person. I liked the fight. You know, there is testimony that Saint Arseny Boca would have said that the prayers of Saint Basil and the prayers of Saint John Chrysostom, he refers here to the exorcism prayers, although they are, mostly, prayers to God for removal of demonic activities, they contain curses for demons and demons are asked to leave, should be used by priests who are also monks, not for priests like me, who live in the world, and serve the lay people, because demons shall attack their families. And it was. My wife died, my child also died. I am sure this happened because of the fight I have got into. But I did not stop. Why? I had already lost so much, I wanted to defeat them even more. But something else was also at work. People came to me. An unworthy priest. An unworthy man. A weak man. But I realized that, when they asked my help, they asked the help of God. And I could let them down. A few seconds of silence, then he continued. Regardless of what we do or what we do not do afterwards, something would do good. Yourself are not in the best shape, so to say. I say I make the sacrament of unction at the church, for you, mostly. Afterwards, we shall have holy oil from unction, also it would make all us stronger, if we decide to go on with what you want, I agreed. The sacrament gave me a sensation of peace, although it seemed hard to stand at it, at times. After it, he said the exorcism prayer for me. I looked at him, somewhat at peace. Adrian was trying to be there for me, as well, it seems. I do not know what was in his mind, though. All right, said Father George at the end. You still feel like coming with you to Bucharest, to that place? I guess I still felt like that, so I replied, yes. Let me just a few moments for spend alone in the holy altar, and we shall see. For Western reader, in Orthodox churches the holy altar is separated from the rest of the church by an incomplete wall. Eventually, he got out and said, I am coming with you. On the road, Father George explained us some things. For example, that most hoings are made by demons, because the souls of deceased human beings are in the hands of God, regardless if they go to hell or heaven. And they are not allowed to wander around on earth after death. Indeed, there are some special situations when some curses, or rare conditions, when the dead can be present on the land of the living. Demons have a strong power of deceit, of shapeshifting. Also, the fear we feel in haunted places is because of our souls react to the evil presence of demons. Helena seemed to bring a feeling of dread when she was around. He considered Helena a demonic entity or manifestation. Demons are, in their natural state, spirits without a body, like the angels they used to be. Their power of disguise can be so great that they can take the appearance of a living, flesh and blood person. Helena could be either one or more demons who pretend to be a flesh and blood being, or projections of such demons. Yet, in my mind some things did not make sense, like Helena letting me go. Father George also said that, for most people, seeing a demon without their disguise, without their mask, it would going into insanity. And seeing Satan himself would bring death. But, indeed, there are few spiritually advanced people, orthodox mystics, that can not just face demons, but command them to leave. In whom resides the power of the living God. Normal people should not talk to demons, being too weak. Demons can get their power into people, if they communicate with them. We reached the Mica Dom Louis Street in Colentina, eventually. We stopped at a local store first, to get some water for all of us, especially after the road. Outside the store, there were some boys, aged between 6 and 9, let's say. They had the look like they would like to steal a wallet. We were careful inside. Father George remained in the car. And my hunch was right. One of the boys came fast to me, grabbed my phone and ran away. I left my wallet there, Adrian was there, and ran for the kid. The phone, among others, held the scanned PDF of the Diary of La E.A. Kids ran with him along some back streets. I ran for them. Adrian came in the back, after taking the keys and the wallet from the store. Eventually, the kids came close to streets where Helena resided. I managed to see them entering a yard, with dirty houses inside, ghetto style, where people who lived, mostly, on petty crimes, reside. I did not allow them to close the gate and shouted at them, "Give me my phone back, or else, I call the police," I shouted. An almost middle-aged woman came out shouting, "What are you doing here? Get out." My kids did not do anything. This is how this kind of people behave, I knew it too well. A kind of fat man also came out, shirtless, showing his tattoo-filled chest. He looked menacing. Somebody else, in this situation, would have backed out. But I could not let the diary escape once again in the world. I saw the kids hiding inside one of the houses, including the one who grabbed the phone. "Give back my phone or else." After a second of silence, I continued calmly and sharply, "Or else the woman in black will come for all of you." They got pale. Then woman tried to shout again, "Get out now, my kids have not stole your phone." Yes, he did steal it, I saw him clearly. I cut their words abruptly. "You know who I am talking about. I know you know what happened to Marcel. It will happen to you even worse, I promise you." They were a little startled, so I entered the house and went for the kid. I continued on the same calm and sharp tone, "Give me my phone now or the woman in black shall come for you." He looked concerned. I pressed him slowly against the wall, then he handed the phone back. As I exited the house, I turned to them, "You know, if keep going like that, sooner or later, she will come for you. This is her domain and she likes it clean." The woman tried to shout, but on a much weaker tone, "Ma'am, this is life. Kids need to do this, in order to be prepared for life. They need to be skilled." "No," I shouted angry. Then, on a much gentle tone, I continued, "You see, look of how many people live differently from you. And it is okay for them. Not just that, but some get really rich and powerful without doing those things. Without being like that. Think about it." I turned my back and exited the yard. Adrian was waiting at the gate. We reached the car and went close to the house of Nicolina, where Martha pointed to the lair of Helena. We waited. Father George whispered some prayers, put on the epithalamion, the stole of Eastern Orthodox priests, prepared his cross, oil from the unction, holy water, and we waited. It was not long and the lights went off. The gate started to screech slowly, and I decided to get out. Father George grabbed my hand, trying to stop me, whispering that he will go. But I disobeyed and went out. Helena was there, at the gate. As I knew her already. Father George and Adrian came out after me. A feeling of dread I already knew too well came from Helena. In the back, where Father George was, something else, something strong and filled with light was present. Yet, I had an urge to go to Helena. "Hello, Helena. We meet again." She was looking a little confused, I may say, of all this. Father George came and grabbed my arm, pushing me towards the back. I went close to the car, taking Adrian with me. Father George started saying the exorcism prayers and other prayers pretty fast. Helena stood there, silent, having a strange look on her face. Father George went silent and put some droplets of holy water on Helena. She trembled a little, very little. Father George looked a little abashed. He then took oil from the unction and made the cross sign on Helena's forehead. Again, she trembled a bit, but only a bit. They kept on looking silently at each other. I could not see the expression of Father George, but he looked confused in his own way. still holding strong, but confused. After a few seconds, he pressed the metal cross he held in his hand into Helena's forehead. She trembled a little, but remained still and silent. Father George, after being silent again a little, he turns his head on us, and his expression showed that he had some idea. He turned towards Helena and blessed her on the head, like a priest or bishop bless the faithful. And we were all surprised that Helena accepted it discreetly, like a normal Orthodox Christian would, although somewhat uncomfortable. This was abashing for all of us. Something really weird, that we felt was not supposed to be, was going on. Father George came close to Helena and whispered something to her ear. We could not hear well. Then he whispered again, slightly more authoritatively. Helena answered, whispering in her hissed voice I knew, but, again, we could not hear what she said. Father George stepped back, abashed and amazed. Helena was looking in his eyes. This lasted for about a minute, then we went back and whispered something else. He blessed her again, then he came to us, and signaled us to get into the car and leave. We complied, as Helena was looking at us. As Adrian drove off towards the exit from the city, Father George finally spoke out, "You have no idea what I have seen in my life. How powerful demons, what shapes they can take, how deceitful, how scary, how toxic they can be. I am sure I have seen, virtually, nothing of what they can do. Yet, something like this I have never seen. Something I do not understand. How to make sense of it. What I can say, Ruxandra, is that it seems you were right. This is not a demon or a manifestation of demons." She accepted the blessing, the cross, the oil, and I even managed to get to pray like this: "Lord, have mercy on me, the sinner." A demon cannot pray like this. A demon cannot pray at all. It would mean that they repent, and they do not do that. But she said the prayer. After another period of silence, he said, "The Lord knows what she is. I surely do not." Darkness and light were in my soul then. As leftovers, perhaps, or more. Both. I felt them both. And they were not fighting. Indeed, the Lord knows what Helena is. Helena the Clown. Part 10. What in the world is Helena? I do not know. Perhaps I do not need to. Perhaps something is more important. Yes, Helena was a creature of the night who spread death, blood and terror. A being of whom people whispered, children shared scary stories, mothers scared their children that she will come for them, if they misbehaved. But she was also something else. Sometimes, in certain nights, she entered pubs or restaurants. People fled, of course. Even if they did not believed in her before, I am sure they became believers very fast. This first contact filled the place with panic. Sometimes mutilations occur. But it seems these situations rarely ended up in deaths. If the bartender or, sometimes, the cook, fled, she tried to get them back. Even the folk music players, the Latari, who, back then, also played even new folk music, fused between traditional local folk and new, Western genre. She asked some shot of suica or palinka shots, the stronger alcoholic drinks in Romania, asked the Latari to sing and play, she'd just sit at the table, enjoying the shot, slow. She asked even for chill songs. And, she chilled. If this does not sound so human, I do not know what else would. Perhaps she felt alone. She probably was. Jameson and La Ea were probably not too pleasant to hang on with. Some psychologists say that women, when they no chance to communicate their feelings, they drink. I have experienced it myself. She seemed human when she did all that. Perhaps she would have liked to just be immortal. And just hang out with someone. Perhaps someone to love or care for her was too much. But someone at least to talk to and listen. From time to time. But, when you are a monster people are scared of, people shall see only what is monster in you, not what is human. And you shall be alone. I need to admit, there were times when she killed people at restaurants and pubs, on purpose. Then she sit and drink. But is it possible there was a commanded mission or some of her bursts, when she wanted to kill? But people did not know what she was up to, when they saw her. On the other clowns, seen in the later period, not much is known. They were both like and unlike Helena. Perhaps Jameson created them to replace La Ea, or the please her, or a combination of both. Zerva, then blonde one, was seen sometimes at night on her own. She had some strange scream that scared people and made them flee. I guess she looked very ghost-like. She did not seem to get engaged into conversations, but she also did little heinous things. Indeed, like a ghost, she brought fear more than actual harm. There was Galma, who was also seen, at some nights entering pubs and, after some violence, he drank suica or palinka as well. But much more than Helena. He often left the pub and caused some destruction on his own. Not much and messy. When he killed and mutilated, He also seemed to be far more messy than Helena. But this lasted a little while. One night was about to end all. Not just Helena's reign of terror in the nights of Bucharest, but her mere presence as well. To understand what happened that night, I need to say there were some claims that Helena, after an incident in Gara de Nord, the north train station of Bucharest, the largest in the city and in the whole country, even today, of violence, was seen in the railway's workshops of Grivita, north of the Basarab train station, that was north of the North train station. In 1933 a strike at the workshop ended up in massacre performed by the police. A far more famous act than what I shall share today. But Helena and Galma were seen talking to the workers there. As they were seen talking to the workers who earned their living on the factories of Obor, the mask factory and the pump factory. As well as they were seen talking to the workers on the Tonala construction material factory in Colentina, that was close to the current lair of Helena. I find hard to understand how they managed to talk to those mortal humans, but it seems something happened. At the crossroad between the highways of Stefan Selmer and Dorobanti, two of the major boulevards in Bucharest, where now there are demolished empty spot, there used to be a restaurant named Rota Lumi, meaning the wheel of the world. It represented the stages of human life, from birth to death, in its decorations. It also had tables outside, traditional folk music, barbecue and the summer sky. Colentina was not very far, Gara de Nord was also somewhat close. One summer night, some police officials came there, for a late dinner. Dirty police officials. But guess what? Helena showed up. Before they managed to get their guns, Helena grabbed one of them, then managed to use him as a hostage and human shield against the others. Panic took over the place, as she broke the legs of the hostage and used him to block the door. Some other police official fired several bullets, missed Helena, or perhaps she was hit, but was not vulnerable. It seems she started using her power of creating ghost objects and throwing them at the targets. She got her hand on the gun of the fallen and shot the second one in the shoulder. She took his gun, then knocked him down. The third one was a little harder to catch. He fled to the kitchen door, there he fired his gun, missing the target. Helena shot him in the shoulder as well, then took his gun. Something strange was feeling in the air, people who were inside were not able to explain to clear what was it. She made sure the legs of all three were broken, then she started to drag them, one by one, into the kitchen, where there were sausages frying and a great cauldron of beans boiling. She took one of them and forced his face into the boiling cauldron, making him inspire boiling hot beans. On the second one, she poured hot oil from a frying pan. For the third, she took the hot sausages. It seems she protected her hands using some gloves different from the ones she had usually, beat him up with them. Then she strangled all the three with hot sausages. All this happened very fast. The cook was blocked inside the kitchen, she asked him to slice the dead and cook them. While this was happening, she took a few shots of palinka. She stood waiting for a few minutes, thinking. Probably she got an idea, as she exited in the yard, then returned in. She asked the cook about some residents living close to the restaurant. After a while, after she ate some of the fried flesh of the victims, she exited the restaurant and entered the streets in the north of restaurant. That area was pretty bad area back then, not as bad as in the beginning of the 20th century, but pretty bad still. She entered two houses, killed two known brigands from the area, and she came to the streets, holding the severed head of one of them in her hand and shouting to people to come out, that she has a proposition for them that they will like. Most people stayed indoors, fearing the monster they knew too well, some already saw in the past at Rota Lumi. I just got rid of the three scum from the police. Then I got rid of those two who forced you in fear to stay in your houses, who took your money just to make you feel safe. You know that police does not care, that police protects them. From this night on, your streets will be safer. But only for a little while, others like take their place. You know why? Because you are weak. You are afraid of them. You are not united. I have a proposition for you. Give the names and the addresses of all other like them from around here. Come on, I am listening. They cannot harm me, you know I am a strong witch, that I can do many things. Some you never dreamed of. So, come out and say. I promise you that, if you do this and do not misbehave, you shall not be harmed. This is your chance. She kept on talking. Unlike her old habits and unlike the Helena I met. Slowly, a few people come out and talk to her. They took her to a certain house, where she broke in and killed swiftly some people. She started talking again. I shall keep my promise. Come with me, all of you, at Rota Lumi. And call others. Helena returned to Rota Lumi, some people with her. There were two police cars parked, and policemen were standing at the gates of Rota Lumi. They pointed their guns at her. She looked condescending at them and said, "You know very well you cannot take me down. I see you shaking. So, I tell what, surrender your guns to us and leave. I shall let you go. Stay out of our way. Perhaps you have families at home and it is not worth it. The policemen kept pointing their guns at the defiant Helena. She kept doing some weird gestures with her hands at her pelvic region, similar to those she did on the circus arena, back in the day. One policeman snapped and fired his gun. Almost immediately, with one hand she threw a ghost object that made the bullet fly up. With the other, she threw another one at one of the cars, this one being pretty large. The top of one of the police cars crashed and flattened, with a bang. Policemen panicked, dropped their guns and fled towards Stefan Selmayr. Helena picked them up, and went inside Rotolumi. Scared people around her starting to obey her orders. She ordered some carriages to be filled with hot food, a barrel of hot beer, a cauldron with hot beans and one with hot oil. She made one phone call inside the restaurant, then she gathered the people outside the gate. She started to be surrounded by a gentle, gray mist. I guess she learned some things from Jameson or this came innate from her. People, she started talking, we are going to Mahalawa Draculae, in Romanian the Devil's Ghetto, a small area that was considered, perhaps, the worst in Bucharest, between what is now the boulevard of Nicolae Ticelescu, the Banu Manta and Dr. Felix streets. An area filled with violent criminal activity, where there was a university of crime. Brigands, robbers and murderers from there went to other parts of Bucharest to do their wicked deeds. Now the area is pretty safe, we shall clean it. Does any of you know how to drive a car? 2 people came out. You shall drive this car. The rest shall take the carriages. People executed. As Helena went to drive the carriage where the barrel and the cauldrons were placed, she shouted, "Get ready. We shall have great fun tonight." I think I can understand somewhat of why Helena did that she did that night. After all I saw. What I have shared so far was just the start of a night unlike any other in Helena's life, both as a human or as a creature of the night. Resting after coming from last meeting with Helena, the one with Father George, I have started to put information together concerning that night that started at Rotolumi. I have decided to pay a visit to Martha, to help me put the pieces together. Since that long day I have talked to her, I still called her several times, to help me with the information I had from other source, to piece them together. So I decided to pay her a visit, to talk to her about all the things I have discovered since. I have parked my car close to her house, but I saw a group of gangster-like men talking. One of them was the father of the boy who stole my phone yesterday. They were talking loudly, the father seemed angry. It appears that the boy, named Damien, was abducted. The man got into some conflict a local organized crime clan called Rumagush and, especially, their leader, known as Cougar. The same morning happened. The police was out of the question, the clan had big connections with the upper parts of the police. And those people solve their problems in different ways. The father said that he knows Rumagush started a new activity, that belonged to other clans in the past, meaning abducting children for organ trafficking. For him, it felt hopeless. And for me, I was thinking of children like Damien. Romani children, but not only Romani, some Romanian as well. They were born in families where the best thing in life meant to become a gangster. Being a normal citizen was unthinkable, their childhood stolen from the start. No chance for a normal life. A child should play, should learn, not steal phones. And, it seems Damien would have no chance of life at all. Helena had no chance at all as well. Nobody came for her in Alexandra. But, perhaps, for Damien someone will come. My first though was to go to those people and talk to them. But I felt afraid, these kind of people are dangerous, especially in groups and when they are angry. Perhaps I had to go to them and talk, but I did not. Coward, perhaps? But I had an idea. I knew who I could try to talk. I had just found out that morning that Marcel was not just awake at the hospital, but he seemed to be able to talk. A co-worker from the TV network told me. I have decided to talk to him. I would be difficult to enter that section of the hospital, but I think I can manage. I got in my car and went there. I have talked to some friend who knew someone from the hospital. They allowed me, I do not know how legal it was, but I have entered. Of course, I wore some protection clothes. It was a place where hygiene was important, surgeries etc. Marcel seemed to be sleeping. He looked bad, really bad. A broken man. I touched him gently on shoulder. He opened his eyes. "Hello, my name is, Censored, from the, Censored, TV network. I have heard you were awake." He replied with a tired voice, "Someone from there already came some hours ago." "I am tired. I know and I am sorry." I replied, "But we need to talk. Do you know the family who lives at the, Censored address? They have a boy called Damien." "Yes, I do, not very well." Rumagush took the boy. "For organ trafficking. Orders of the Cougar." "Tell what you know." He looked at me with partially closed eyes. I do not know. I do not remember, I want to sleep. So, I said, whispering at his ear, tell me, or else, the woman in black shall come for you. He looked at me with a scared face. He trembled a bit. He looked into my eyes and he could not shake of fear. No, Ma, I am, please do not let her come for me. I tell you. Go on. Cougar started the business about a month ago. The Cement Clan was brought down when Cougar managed to kill many of them. They had this in their hands, and Cougar took it. I do not know where they are, but I think I would the most probable location. The old pipe factory, at Elektroniki Highway, an industrial street just back of Obor, with many old factories, many decommissioned or about to be decommissioned. Some were already demolished to make room for other things, like office buildings. In there is also a railway, mostly abandoned now, a leftover of the line that served the Obor market and fair, the Asan Mill factory from Lizianu, connecting East train station, that is built between Obor and Pantelimon, to Piper being, actually, the line of the ghost train of Lizianu, is where they stored drugs. And prisoners. For a few days. It is easy to spot, it has some tall, highway-like lampposts, each of them with tree lamps. That is all I know, I swear. I believe you. Chill down, please. Yet, I would like to ask you. How was it? When she grabbed you? When she did those things to you? What did you felt? Marcel was surprisingly calm. Mon, it seems that my life before that was from another century. Like the life of another man. I do not know what she was, she felt like a nightmare, like a curse that came from an old witch. Unforgiving, ruthless, like the Grim Reaper sent for me. Yet, after she broke my arms, in just a few seconds, even after the blade had already entered my throat, it was like someone whispered to me that, if I chose to change, to become a better man, a different man, she may spare my life. I could not speak, I had no time for it. But I tried to tell her through my eyes. And fast. And hope whoever gave me the though would help me tell her. And it seems that she did get the message. You can say whatever you wish, I know she could have finished me off then. It would have been so easy. But I am sure it was no accident that I am alive. She wanted it. After a few moments of silence, he continued, you know, Damien would grow up to be like me. Probably worse. But, if someone finds him, if he managed to get out alive, please talk to him. Make him understand. There is another way than our own. Another life. God gave me a new chance. I did not deserve it. Please, I hope there is still time. I looked at him amazed. Something powerful is at work in all this. Someone powerful. Who works in a very discreet way, but visible for those who are willing to see. I felt something telling to my heart that, although we do not know that everything will be okay, there is a clear chance in all this. That I have to go on and fight. That I will get help. I thanked Marcel and left. I went to the next police station I could find. I told them what I knew about what happened with Damien. I told them about the abandoned factory from Elektroniki, not the from whom and from where. The police officer was somewhat rude. He kept on going that, if the family does not file a missing person report, they cannot do anything. I was quite sure he was lying. I left the police station in anger. Talked to Adrian on the phone. I have called Father George for advice as well. Both of them told they shall help me. We need to do what it was needed on our own. Somehow. There were little chances of anything. Then I have noticed it was getting dark. And I had an idea. I went back to the Mica Dom Nului area. Straight to the lair of Helena. It was already dark, but I knocked heavily on the door. Helena, I know you are there. I know. Please come out. I stayed there for about half an hour. Some people came out to see the noise, but none of them had the courage to get involved. I seemed mad to them, I guess. I was mad, that is clear. I kept knocking until the light went out and the gate opened. Helena stood there. Like I knew her. She looked surprised. Those eyes pierced me. Hello, Helena. I started. My tone was quite aggressive. I was clear out of mind, talking like that to a powerful monster. I do not care if you hurt me. I do not care if you kill me. I need your help. A little boy from nearby was taken. To be slashed for his organs. I shall not lie to you. He is a child from a family of criminals, like the ones I know you despise and desire to clean the city, the country of. He stole my phone yesterday, but I got it back. He would probably grow up to be a criminal, worse than his parents. But now, his life would be taken away from. Like your life and the life of Alexandra was taken from you. I looked her in the eyes and waited for a reaction. She stared at me. So I continued, you, back in the day, when you were doing all the things you were famous and feared for, you have got your back covered. Jameson had it. Only in last night your cover was gone. Until then you were even allowed to be some sort of justice warrior of your own, but you have got yourself covered. But guess what? Now it seems you not have it anymore. Neither have I, of course. I know where the boy probably is. I shall go there tonight and try to save him. Who knows, perhaps he shall end up a good man, in the end, if he is saved. I shall go for him. They may kill me there. You may kill me. I do not care. I know what I have to do. She stood silent. I have opened Google Maps and found the factory. See it, in here? Back in Electroniki. The old pipe factory. I know you know it. Here is the map. The police refuses to help. I am going in there. Do you come with me or not? She stood still, looking at me. Then it struck me. What was I doing? Like a veil of fury that blocked my judgment was taken from my eyes. I was in front of the monster who promised to finish me off. I started to tremble. My human nature reacted to what I know it is natural. Humans are supposed to run from beings like this. We cannot even stand their presence. She is undead and from the dark. As seconds passed, my heart keeps seeing all of this so clear. And with each second, it was her was gaining control on me over my own fear. I saw the monster more and clear, as it became more and clear that, by confronting the monster, I have just signed my death sentence. Just now. The boy will also be gone because of me, due to the fact that I am here. Those eyes, those blank, white, dead eyes, where so much cruelty and death resided. Just like in nightmares where I saw her. Her mere silence became harder and harder to bear, and it felt like the undead being will turn me dead the more I listened to the silence. But then a gentle thought came to me. No, it did not take away all that just came to me. They were still there. Just like a faint, sweet whisper in mind. I looked at the monster and said in a gentle, benevolent tone, but you know what you can do? You could save a life. You took so many lives, you can save one. And this I dare to tell you, not only it will ease your heart, but it will warm it up. Heal it. Perhaps this is hard for you, but I promise you will bring a peace that right now you cannot even dare to hope at. Then I reached for her gloved hand. At first, the instinct took over, it felt dead, corpse-like cold, strong, and ruthless. But I took it in my both hands, knowing she may just break them in 1 second, and I have continued. Nobody came for you, when they did that to you. Think about it, that there is a chance for you to be there for someone in a similar situation. And believe me when I tell you, I believe in you. I stared into the abyss in her eyes. And kept my temper, not loose, like before. I smiled. Both things were the in me, the giant fear and something else. Something so fine, and yet so strong, who kept the fear in check. As a part of me saw the monster more clearly and felt the fear stronger, another was more at peace and wanted to stay longer in this state. But the child needed to be saved. So I said to her, "Will you come with me?" No reply. I sobbed. I have slowly let go of her hand and said, "If you will not come with me now, I shall go now. I shall try to save Damien. He might not even there, but I need to try." I went to my car, then turned my back to look at the gate. She was still there, silent. "You know, you can come later, if you change your mind. I believe in you." And I have smiled again. Then entered the car and went off. No way back now. Helena the Clown. Part 11. It has ended. I do not know if it is for good. Yet, some cycle is closed. Therefore, I need to release you as well, all those who read all I had to say. I cannot finish the story tonight, as I wished, but I have a final word tomorrow, just to close. First things first. I am sorry for cutting short the story of the last night of Helena in the 1930 ties, the last night of her old life. It was an overwhelming state for me. I think I am pretty chill now, after all, and be able to resume. I shall share all I have managed to get and put in order so far about that night, then I shall share what myself experienced lately. Some small thing. Before starting, I want to share a small piece of information I forgot last time. A few days before that night that started at Rotalumi, Helena was seen in a pub. A shot of Palinka. A song of Jean Moskopol called Mana Burjar was playing. Helena took from time to time a sip of Palinka during the song, then, after finishing the drink, kept the small glass in her hand. Her head was to the ground, a clear, deep sadness was on her face. The song is about a man who has lost his love and falls into alcoholism due to it. I wonder what she was thinking. How did she felt? Hopeless, disgusted of her life, of the city she lived in too. Perhaps something of the song fit her mindset and she had an idea then, or soon after, when she left the pub, going towards Obor. Okay, now, I shall pick from where I left the previous post. Helena left with some people, not many yet, to Mahalawa Draculae. It was not very far. Some people who saw the crowd fled, others joined, as Helena told the ones already involved to call others, in helping cleaning up the mess from Mahalawa Draculae. All the Victory Square was traversed and they reached Sozoa Basarab, that is now the Boulevard Nikolai Tichelescu. They have decided to enter from Sozoa Basarab, not the Dr. Felix Street, risking the separation. Helena moved her left hand slowly in the air and a weak grey mist surrounded Helena, then the carriage, then the people. "Do not worry," shouted Helena. "You are safe in the mist. It is for our own use. So, tell me, where are them?" In order. Some people she had talked on the road gave her the name of the two of the professors. Helena went to the house of the first, could not find him, so she went to the second house. She started shouting into the streets for people to find them and handle them. Some were afraid at first, but the ones already with her started telling them to listen to Helena, that she will kill all the criminals, especially the professors. Finding the second on the list changed the feel of the movement. She placed his head in hot beer, then slit his throat, mixing the blood with beer. After his intestines were on his fence, she shouted again, "Give me all who follow them. The smallest ones and the big ones." His eyes were like on fire. Slowly, people starting telling names and places. She went there and got them without much judgment, it seems. She burned them with hot beans or hot beer, opened their abdomens then after killing them, but to some when they were still alive. There were some dummies that the professors used to train young criminals how to rob, hurt and kill. She piled up some 5 bodies in the middle of the street, alongside the dummies, covered them in alcohol and set them on fire. Even houses where the teaching happened were set on fire. Some people, who were criminals or relatives of them, tried to fled. Some succeeded, some were killed. Others joined the crowd who started to enjoy what was going on. Yet it was all possible that some small criminals joined the crowd to escape and to use the occasion for other harms. People started arguing about who of them was a criminal or not. Helena silenced the scandals, listening to several testimonies. Then she decided on the spot, life or death. In the end, some police entered, but the mob attacked the cars, setting them afire. Some people were shot but, in the end, after Helena's intervention, all the guns were seized and set on her carriage. It seems that, sometime at this point, Galma appeared in there. Probably Helena called him with some normal means, like the phone from Rotolumi. I do not think it is anything supernatural like telepathy involved. If it were, they would have managed much better what they did that night. Helena and Galma started talking near the carriage, when the crowd was around them and the ruins of burned houses and charred corpses. Most of the leftovers of the food and drink they took from Rotolumi to use as weapons were given to the crowd. A part of the alcohol was kept to be used as weapons for fire, later. Helena drank some suika or palinka and kept some in a small bottle, on her waist. "We need to go to the railway's workshop, in Grivita. Fast. To stir up as many people as we and from there or Gillespie. What do you think is the fastest way? From Banu Manta through Grivite Way, Kalia Grivite, or through the small streets ahead, to get some more people on the way, kill some of the bastards in there and then reach the end of the Grant Bridge?" asked Helena. Galma replied, "If it works so far, it seems we can gather some more. There are enough brigands even just north of this, until there, to get rid of and so, find new people willing to join us. But I am worried it shall take too much and the police shall reach us. I have scared some already. They shall bring reinforcements, indeed, but we need more people. Those from the railway's workshop know us, some of them live nearby. And, besides, we have some guns. The police cars we have got our hands on are not enough to transport all of them. I do not think we can also gather more carriages and cars to get all of them. Police may come faster, due to their cars. But small streets are better for marching, I guess, as it would be easier to attack us on open boulevards. They may wait for us at the bottom of the Grant Bridge. Due to Mandake, this was the probable name of the gentleman clown, Zerva and the rest have started to arise the people from Colentina and Obor?" continued Helena. "I told them to," replied Galma. "I do not know how they shall manage, there are several people who they could gather at the fair of Obor. From the mask factory or from Aversa. Police may be on their way. They need to be phoned before we start marching now towards Grant Bridge. They need to leave fast, to get to Eliza Filipescu Street. And, as you well know, they are not as capable as you, especially Zerva. If yourself were there, it is pretty sure you could gather more, not just from there, but from the Asan Mill, from Tonala, the bricks factory from the edge of Colentina, where the state circus is now. We need more people, indeed, but there is little time. Besides, there is the risk of police coming there, so they need to be on the move. I think we need to call them now, not when we reach Grant." "You are right," said Helena. "They need the signal to proceed now. So they managed to make a phone call from one of the houses, it seems, and they went on marching on the streets between the Banu Manta Street, the Philanthropia Boulevard, Grivite Way to the Grant Bridge. There are testimonies of fires and some small destruction in the Obor Fair, and small crowds starting to march over the Colentina Highway, then to Micah Dom Nului, then towards the Barbu Vacarescu Boulevard. It became, gradually, bigger, but not much bigger. It seems they had some guns with them, and torches, like the crowd around Helena. There was some police involvement, some fires, it appears several people were shot. Police was repelled, eventually, but it took longer and some more casualties. They needed to break through the Hippodrome of Floreasca. Today it does not exist anymore. There are streets with small apartment blocks, and use then the small streets from Floreasca, and the small street in Dre Mureșanu. That will prove to be a mistake, in the end, because the diversion thought by Helena for them to come through Victory I, to prevent the police from understanding their first real target, will be blown, when they went through in Dre Mureșanu. It is not known which of them decided to through north, perhaps to avoid the Bonaparte Highway. A grey mist covered both crowd about a kilometer around, turning the summer night into some faux autumn misty night, but still warm, like summer. It seems the idea of marching alongside small streets was a good one. Today, on the Grant area, there is a much larger, wider bridge, and the former street of Turda was turned into a boulevard. But, back then, things looked different. There were many workers living in the area, near the workshops. Poor people who, like other poor people, hated the regime. They sent people before them to call some more, announcing the uprising, to join. Fortunately for them, there was no clear sign of the police in the Grant area, so they went on the bridge. Helena waited a while for Galma, along several people, to go near the beginning of the Gillespie area, to call for people and, in no more than 15 minutes, gather whoever they can. Some of the people who joined, being workers at the workshops, managed to get in and some materials to improvise into bottles, ways to start fires. Also tools were taken to be used as weapons. From Gillespie there comes some Latari and give them the task to play folk music, but on a military march rhythm, using strong drums. Some say there could have been as much as 1,000 people, some say even 2,000. We do not know what was real, 1,000 seems a more realistic number. They returned to the other side of Grant and started marching fast to the south. Now they hurried up and stopped gathering more people. At this time, there was a phone call to the police that stated the crowd wants to reach downtown, coming through Victory I Square. This seemed to have been a diversion made by someone who was part of mob, probably Helena's idea to make authorities think their target was a different one. Slowly, from Calia Grivite area, the mist started to grow and engulf larger areas, especially to the north and east. Those who took part at that march and remember it gave testimony that there was a weird, partially scary, partially mentally arousing feeling. Like they felt something powerful in that mist, like moving them to another place. The city seemed unusually quiet, and that seemed eerie peaceful. Yet, while marching from the Grant Bridge to the Basara Bridge, two bridges that were not too distant one from the other, both covering the same railway area, something was felt, then seen. Some dark, distant, vaguely humanoid figures with wings were above the mist, from time to time, above the crowd. A weird, distant, but strong, I know it sound kinda of a contradiction, both distant and strong, but this is how some people managed to describe it. Fear came with the sightings. Helena and Galma looked up. Galma noted, "You see them too, isn't he it?" "Yes," answered calmly Helena. "Somebody does not like what is happening. I wonder how fast shall they interfere and how. For now, they are still up." Then she said to the crowd behind, "Stay close to us and stay together. They want you to be afraid. If you want to be safer, do as I say." Some people left the crowd, but most stayed. They reached Basara Bridge and there, on the street, there was a surprise right in the middle of the road. In the mist, without very clear shape, there were the silhouettes of two tall women, dressed in white, long dresses. One had blonde hair, one had red hair. They glowed in the dark with some kind of aura, their eyes were bright, like blue lanterns, their skin very pale, virtually white, their features unearthly beautiful, yet terrible. Helena stopped the march and people started to whisper in fear, "Ill." Ill, a name given in Romania to the dark elves. Dark in this case does not mean necessary evil, but dark in intentions. Ill are a type of dark intention Zana, a type of figure in Romanian folklore mythology, not being clear how much they are evil in themselves or how much they became dangerous when mortals meet them. The translation of the name Zana in English is, probably, elf, not fairy, how it is, usually, translated. We see this profile of being in many folkloric mythologies in Europe, having different names in different cultures but, at least somewhat, similar profiles. The term elf comes from the Germanic peoples, being related with an old term for white, a reference, maybe, to their white clothes, including the English. The Irish called them she, the Slavic people villa, the ancient Greeks nymphs, that meant bride in ancient Greek, again, probably a reference to their, mostly, white clothing, modern Greeks nereids. Actually, in ancient Greek nereid meant a water nymph. The term evolved, in time, to refer to all nymphs. When seen in their natural shape, they usually appear dressed in white. There are references of them wearing some sort of magical masks that make them appear human or invisible, sometimes being able to shapeshift into white swans. Scandinavian people consider elves being able to live under a human identity in a human society, using their masks. Very often, when they are met in their natural form, it is in nature, usually forest, during dances or celebrations, and that meant for the mortal death or some other serious harm. In the last century, in Romania were seen, mostly, in remote areas, although there are testimonies of them in the 19th century Bucharest. Balkanic peoples fear them greatly, almost as much as they fear ghosts or undead beings. They can lure people with their siren-like abilities to their deaths or to mutilation or illness. So, seeing elves scar the people, some panicked. Helena turned to them. Brace yourselves and stay put. I shall talk to them. She went to the elves. The blonde elf started talking in a very beautiful voice, but on a sharp, harsh tone. You broke our agreement. How dare you? Helena replied, No, I have not. Our agreement does not cover them. It is very clear, when I enter your domain and business, with business of my own, to stay out of yours, as I stay out of mine. You are the one who interfere now. The red-haired elf asked, What on earth is this? What do you think you are doing? Helena replied with a kind of fierce, but respectful tone, The two of us and the people do some clean up. We are all sick of living with all that scum. We are going to get rid, as best as we can, the country of the scumbags that sell it and destroy it. Please stay out of way. You are mad. Replied the blonde elf. A bunch of people, against them? They shall kill both you and the humans alongside with you. We are here to stop you. Stop me? Replied Helena. You may be strong and ancient, but I am also strong. I do not know whoever of us is stronger. We can try and see right here and right now, but I guess you would not like it either. The red-haired elf looked angry at Helena. You have any idea how old I am? What I can do to you? How dare you disrespect us? Well, replied Helena, I may be much younger than you, but I am immortal as well. And I am not going to live centuries and ages on this earth like this. Perhaps, since the ancient days of your great power gone, you have learned to live in hiding, in secrecy, feeling powerful at one-to-one level with a human, but fearing them as a whole, knowing that their great power is in their numbers and they can get rid of you, if you do not hide yourselves. Honestly, I do not know how can you stand and see the centuries, for some of you millennia, go by and go on. Look around you. We all live in a world that gets dirtier, submerged in wickedness as time goes by. Myself, I cannot stand it. Not anymore. After a few seconds of silence, Helena continued, You have a choice, from my perspective. You can either stay out of our way, or join us. We have work to do, a great work to do, and you keep us blocked. The blonde elf replied, of a different tone, A great work? Have you looked at the sky? You have seen them and felt them too, both yourselves and the humans. They seem to have referred to the winged dark figures present in the sky a few minutes ago. Of course, said Helena. For now they did not came down. They want to intimidate us. This means a great deed is ahead us and it should make us even more determined to succeed. You have lost it, said the red-haired elf. I see it now. If you were still sane, you would have realized there is no way a few people can bring down the power. But it seems talking to you is senseless already, since you seem determined to kill yourselves and get all this people to death. You know what? Continued the blonde elf. I guess you have seen there was no police at Grant. Wondered why? The army is coming. From Drummel Taberei they started the march. They come in vehicles, you are on foot. They bring war munition. And guess what? It seems your master was seen with Sigaranta, the political police. Helena became quiet. After a little while, she replied, on a calmer tone and lower voice, He is not my master. He may sell me to them. He already took my human life. I knew that, if I start something like this, it will be my end, one way or the other. But things cannot go on as they are. The blonde elf replied, You can decide for yourself, you have no right to bring all these people to death. If you do that, you are no better than the one who turned you into what you are. Helena stood up quiet at the sky, and replied, They came out of their own will. But I guess that, on this you are right. I shall tell them. She turned to the people, Good folks. It seems the scumbags send the army for us. With war munition. Myself I shall continue. We have our right to live with dignity. We have our right to be free. I tell you this so that you know what is coming. I cannot force you to continue. But, as I already told you, as much of us, the better. We can do this. Some of us may die. But we shall die as heroes, nonetheless. Remember, the more of us we are, the less powerful they are. If we are alone, they take us one by one and crush us. Some people left. It seems many. Some were talking, being undecided. So, she added, whatever you do, decide fast. They are coming. We need to move on. She waited for a few minutes, then she decided to continue the march on the Basara Boulevard, that now is called Ticheliscu, as the elves disappeared into the mist, towards Gare du Nord. She had entered Mahalawa Draculae on the other end of the boulevard, but this time, they should not reach the same area, but switch midway to Banu Manta Street, and cross over the spot they first left Mahalawa Draculae to reach the Grand area. When they were close to leave to enter the Banu Manta Street, they felt again the dark presences above them. Something felt intoxicating, hard to pinpoint what. People left at the march felt bad in their abdomens, even Helena and Galma seemed to be affected. Ignore them, for now, she shouted. Do not look at them at all, do not listen any sound that comes from them. They try to poison us. Some big tree moved and started producing some weird sounds, people started to get scared again. Helena calmed them down again and went to talk, discreetly, with the tree or the being that appeared to be a tree. After a few minutes, she went back to the crowd and continued marching. Galma asked, what did he want? He did not know what was going on. I told him the truth. He was a little scared. I told him we will move away from him, and that it seems unlikely his kin from Kiselev area shall be affected. To chill down. Of course, he told me I am out of mind with all this. After reaching the end of Banu Manta, they needed to decide if they go south, close to Victory Eye Square, but it seems safer to cross Philanthropia Boulevard, that now is called Ion Mihalake, through the Barbu Delavrancha Street, cross the Kiselev Park and join the other group, the one with Demandake, Zerva and the rest after crossing the park, in the Eliza Filipescu Street. Then, another surprise from the sky. A new dark shape, much bigger appeared, some people start feeling bad and panic came back, even stronger. They tried to calm people down, others left. Whatever those beings from the sky were doing, made even the clowns feel bad. But they went on. There were still many people. A strange incident happened when they crossed Philanthropia Boulevard. On the sidewalk, there was a frail young man, with round glasses. He looked intrigued to the crowd, to Helena and Galma, but not with fear at all. He made a sign to the crowd to stop, and people obeyed. He parted them with ease and went to Helena. For a few moments, he and Helena looked at each other, like a human and an alien, trying to understand what is the other. Eventually, the young man smiled and saluted Helena with a salute of military kind, as a sign of respect and recognition. Helena hesitated a few seconds, then returned the same salute. The young man shook his hat, then we left towards downtown, on Philanthropia. Helena restarted the march. When they reached the park, eventually, they met the other group in the park. It seems Helena became very angry when she saw them in park. I told you to go south. Now he left, most likely. We were supposed to make them think we go south. Not to Eliza Filipescu. Demandake looked a little shaken, Zerva wanted to respond, Helena came to her and covered her mouth with her hands. You, please shut up. There is a small chance he is still there. Let's go. They crossed the park and the boulevard for their target of Eliza Filipescu. The buildings were silent, the silence of the misty night was slowly replaced by a rumble of car engines coming from the south. Helena made a sign to stop, then they listened. Another rumble also seemed to come from the north. That meant one thing. They send troops for us from Drummel Tabarai. They are close and coming from both ways. Someone from the crowd betrayed us and gave them the tip. I do not think they would have been where to attack us from otherwise, she said. Another part of the crowd left in panic, going back to the park, when they heard the soldiers were coming. Some people, not very few, stayed put, alongside the clowns, as the vehicles approached them from Victory Eye. The military vehicles, eventually, stopped, and soldiers came out, armed towards the crowd. It is not very clear what happened in those minutes, but it was fast. Some other people ran for their lives. Helena shouted, "Stand your ground. Die with dignity." The end was coming close. They failed. At some point, soldiers stopped close to the crowd and, from behind the soldiers, came out Gordon Jameson. A deep, silent hatred was seen from the eyes of Helena towards him. He raised his hand in the air and the black mist came out and overcome Helena's grey mist. Both the crowd and the soldiers were enveloped in the black mist. People lost it and machine guns started firing at the crowd, in almost perfect darkness. It seems that even soldiers lost it and things turned into a bloodbath, civilians, as well as soldiers were killed. We do not know how fast it went. Eventually, all the mist cleared, the boulevard was filled with dead and wounded people. Sigaranta came, and the area was cleared fast. From the clowns, only Galma was found dead. Helena, Zerva, Demandake and the rest were never seen again in Bucharest. At least until the 2020, when Helena appeared again. There are some reports of 2 Sigaranta agents who were sent to find Gordon Jameson, that they tracked him near the banks of the Colentina River, outside Bucharest, later the same night. He had made up some pile of books and artifacts and rose above them. The agent called him to surrender. He said, "I go to my master to whom I have dedicated my life. But I go on my own terms. I know my rivals have sent you for me, but tell them that nobody shall ever achieve what I did. And I shall make sure it stays so. And they shall never find them, I assure you." Then he recited some incantations in an unknown language. The agents felt a sharp fear and Jameson burst into flames. A strong deafening sound was heard as the flames consumed the body still standing, the books and the artifacts in minutes. It is not clear as anything was recovered from the pile, after the fire went down. I guess there are some things I would like to mention, before moving on what happened those days, the events I also took part, just to close the talk about the past. After what happened with Alexandra and Helena, their families broke down. Alexandra's mother went to a mental institution, where she died in less than a year. Alexandra's father, the Colonel Protopopescu, seemed to bear better. He continued his military career. He eventually became a general, fought in World War II as well. When the Soviet army entered the country, he was arrested and condemned to death, for fighting against the Red Army. His sentence was commuted to life in prison and died in the penitentiary of AO, in 1949. Spurek, the father of Helena, had a breakdown. He sought for his daughter, even managed to kill some gangsters he suspected were responsible on her abduction. The colonel helped him in many ways, both on trial, and in prison. It is said that, when Helena started to appear as a ventriloquist doll in the shows of Jameson, Spurek recognized her, tried to reach her in anger, but he was stopped. He threatened Jameson and he was arrested soon. After spending some years in prison, he managed to escape and live as an outlaw in the forests of the Carpathian forests. It seems that, when he heard of the riot Helena tried on her last night, he would have said, "That is my little girl." He was found and imprisoned again by the communists. He met General Protopopescu in prison. It seems they have had a friendship there that helps Spurek enlarge his spiritual horizon. But that is a story for another place and times, I think. He managed to escape again, alongside other convicts, and joined the resistance in the guerrilla warfare against the communist regime. In 1952, he and his fellows were, eventually, found by the Securitate, the communist political police that was used, also a military police and secret service, and died fighting, in a siege, in the forest. All of them were shot dead, eventually, not before killing many members of the Securitate. In a way, the most interesting case was that of Helena's mother, Safta. She became very pious, prayed a lot, went on pilgrimages and, eventually, was tonsured a nun in the monastery of Pasarea under the name of Saviana. Mother Saviana lived quite an ascetical life. She became an appreciated spiritual advisor. This was the main reason she was arrested by the communists and sent to prison. There she was considered a beacon and a living saint, a pillar who helped other inmates survive in the harshness of the communist prison regime, when violence, hunger and cold were, often, the easiest parts. She dies in 1953, in the penitentiary of Targzer. Her grave is unknown, but archaeologists believe they know the general area of it. Now it is time to get back to the present. To the end or whatever. I have parked my car close to the area of the decommissioned factory from Sozoa Elektroniki. Called Adrian, he told me to wait for him. I have called Father George. He told me he is on his way too. But I was not willing to wait. The place looked silent, at first. The sun was getting ready to set. The railway behind the factory and the apartment blocks behind the railway felt reminiscent of a Russian city, far to the north and the east. The lampposts in the yard were, of course, not on. Perhaps there was no electrical connection in there? I took a deep breath and listened. Silence. Silence. Perhaps this is nothing. Perhaps I was on a wild goose chase. But I heard them. Voices of men speaking distantly inside. I could not understand at all what they were saying, but they were clearly there. Perhaps this does not mean anything. Some homeless people may be inside. But if I do not enter now, I may need to find a way to live with the idea a child died because I did nothing. So, I was going in. What was I going to do exactly once in? I did not know. The gate was locked from the outside, with a big lock, but this does not mean there was not another way in. Or perhaps they locked it from the inside, in such to appear it was locked from outside. Can I go over the fence? Trespassing? Yeah, I shall do it. I have said a small prayer. A deep breath and here I go. I was fine, because I wore that day clothes that allowed me to do this pretty easily. I have got a little dirty, but this was just the start. I have made some noise. The yard had some leftover of factory machinery, that now could only be sent to be recycled the materials or, at best, for spare parts. Probably there was, technically, little probability for that either. I tried to make some as little noise as possible, but the gravel on the ground made it harder. There was some movement from the building, so I quickly hid behind a machinery. A big man, with big muscles and buzz cut, with black t-shirt came out of the building. Very Eastern European gangster-like. It seems Marcel was right. A voice came from inside. Is there anything? The man outside replied, I shall look. I needed to keep cool. This is another type of fear than the fear Helena gave. Much less intense but, honestly, more difficult. I needed to remain as rational as possible, not to panic or do something foolish. If they got their hands on me, it was probably game over very soon. Probably not even my dead body would have been found. But I digress. I said to myself, I need to focus on the situation. I slowly moved towards what seemed to be an entrance. The man with the black t-shirt went to the gate. I slowly came close to the entrance. There a little light inside, pretty faint. I came closer. And managed to get in. There was nobody in sight, so I tiptoed inside. The light seemed to be only towards the basement, so I walked in. Some corridors, typical industrial architecture. I stopped and listened. There was some faint rumble in one side, so I went on the stairs, even more. There was some movement. Soon, the unavoidable happened. A strong hand grabbed me from the back and fiercely turned me. Another big guy like the one from outside brutally held me. He shouted towards the entrance, Gita, you moron. Someone got in. Come in here at once. I have tried to put up a fight and kick him in the stomach, but it seems I was not fast enough and I got 2 hits in the rib and 1 in the head. The guy from outside came rushing in. I was not stopping and fighting, so he threw me to the ground. That was a rough landing. These people had some force. Gangsters are famous for their fitness habits and training, far superior to the ones of the police and even the military. Look at this chick, said the guy who caught me. How was this possible? Cougar shall be very angry. Now, what shall we with her? The other one replied, I say to take her to Cougar. She is not leaving this building alive anyway. He grabbed me from my hair and took me up. You know I have started, there are people who know I am here. And that you are here. He started laughing sadistically, but yet moronically. And will they do? Call the police? We have reached the bottom, into what seemed to be an improvised operating room. Cougar was there. A bigger guy than the two, more muscles and tattoos. What is this? He shouted. What were you doing outside? Guarding the air? They threw me to the ground again. Cougar came down to me, took my face in his hand brutally and said, That's the chick from TV. Hey. This will be funny, when they shall find her dead body. But where and how? Of course, we shall have fun with here before that. But, perhaps our little doctor could find a use for her? Another man came out from another part of the hall. A man very different from the rest. Dressed in medical clothing, he let down his mask. I knew who he was. He was a professor of medicine. He appeared, from time to time, on TV, a big authority in transplants. About 50, partial gray hair, he looked very competent and professional from second one, before even speaking. Handsome, in his own way. Someone who blindly trusts the appearance would never suspect. Now, look at that. He said surprised. I know you from TV. You interviewed me some years ago. What are you doing here? Exposing all the scumbags like you. He smiled. How come? People will come for me, who know I am here and why I am here. I did my best to sound angry and confident. I do not know how it went, I assume lamely. They all laughed in their own way. Cougar said to the doctor, Hey, doc, do you think she has good organs? I do not, he replied. Some analysis need to be performed. On that kid we had them, we knew what we were taking. It shall take a while. It might be worth it. So Cougar made a sign to Gita and command him, tie her up, fast. He tied my hand in front of me. When they were doing this, I have peeked into a corner of the hall where I seemed to have noticed something, so I shouted, Damien? Are you there? Yes. The boy screamed. Cougar went to him and smacked him. I have an idea, said the doctor. I shall give her For now, a little anesthesia, to make her dizzy and unable to walk. As Cougar kept me down, he came with a syringe at me. I tried to put up a fight. I have even bitten Cougar, who shouted a disgusting slur. The doctor injected some substance in my arm, but I was able to escape, got the syringe out and threw it away. Cougar hit me with his leg in my jawbone, and that was a harsh one. A strong pain came over me, even speaking would be rough now. I escaped the bound and arose, as Cougar examined his bite wound. I already find hard to stay up, due to injuries. Perhaps the injection started to kick in, because I was feeling dizzy now. Things started to get blurry. Then I sensed something that froze me on spot. Some small, dark shadows were sitting on the shoulders of the doctor and Cougar, whispering something in their ears. I knew what they were, that they came from hell and their mission was to coordinate the evil doings of those people. They were not seen by them, but I have started to see them. I knew from Father George the First need not to look them in their faces, that I shall loose my mind. I closed my eyes fast. Why did I see them? I do not know. Perhaps the substances in my bloodstream allowed me to? They jumped at me and, due to fear, I fell to the ground. Some of them were felt on my chest. I felt a fear like I never felt again, not just intense, but deep. It felt like sleep paralysis, actually. I passed out. I was slowly awakened by Cougar shouting. Power went out. I came to my sense. I knew then, she was there. Then I black out again. Okay. One more update on all this. How we all escaped. And the rest. It seems that I need to stop here, although I wanted to tell the end now. Sorry again. See tomorrow you, I guess. Helena the Clown. Part 12 series finale. I found myself in an open field. Clear blue sky, unlike the one on Earth. I begun to hear a piano and went to the source of the sound. It sounded beautiful, unlike any piano on Earth. On a small chair, a woman, about 30 years of age, apparently, dressed in a Belle Epoque blue dress, was playing. As I came close, she stopped, rise up and came to me. She was light blonde haired, her eyes were blue and the skin very fair. Her eyes had a light in them, a power so big, yet so much peace came from her. She smiled gently. Hello Ruxandra. You have heard of me, you may even realize who I am, she said to me. You are Alexandra. I replied. She nodded her head. I felt a little confused, so I have asked, am I dead? Is this heaven? She giggled, no, silly. Neither. This is a vision shown to you. You cannot imagine how heaven is, yet, you are not ready, as you are not ready to see me how I am in there. This is a form that is given to you so that you shall be able to receive what I will tell you. I looked into her eyes. She continued, you have many questions. None of them I can answer, but some I will, even before you ask. I do not know if you can escape from here. One thing you have to do, you need to trust the Lord and trust that my dear sister, Helena, will do her best to save you, even if she will do it her way, that it is not always the best way. I am one of the friends of the Lord, the saints, now, because I did the right thing when I could have done it. Helena could have been just like me, but she has fallen. She became a creature of darkness, a creature of the night, a monster, a predator who hunts the living and does the biting of evil. A lot of darkness and evil is in her, as she is now, and your mortal beings are naturally afraid of her, since she is what she is. She has done so many horrible, evil things, yet something always remained inside her, a faint, distant memory, a faint, distant hope. I have prayed for her a lot ever since my soul left my body, and helped her, even since the last days spent in that cage, before she was transformed. You see, the Lord, and his angels send thoughts, feelings to living people's souls, like demons send evil ones, but people have the choice to either accept them or reject them. Besides prayers, I have also been next to her so many times, crying with invisible tears, sending her thoughts, even caresses, that she received or not, of course, unconsciously. She was able to do the right thing, at least a lesser evil, in many circumstances. And that mattered to the Lord. Like when she decided to let those people know the army was coming for them. Or when she decided to show some mercy, some pity to her victims. So many times I was there, beside her. Her mother also helped her so much, both when she alive on this earth, with her prayers, because the prayers of the mother count much for the Lord. Also her tears. Then, her suffering, her martyrdom made her a saint as well, and she continued to fight for her from the other side, like me. You know, Helena has an open door now. She did not dare to get close to the Lord, she believed herself a creature of evil for good, but she kept a small hope. Indeed, the Holy Cross, holy water burned her, as a creature of evil, but not like demons, like the fear she brings is far lesser than the ones brought by demons, as yourself have just seen, like when the demons who ordered, without them knowing, to those people to kill children, attacked you. The Lord has opened a door for Helena, through you and through Father George, who believed in her, even without realizing. She felt so empty, so hopeless, when Father George treated her first like a demon, but she kept her pain, not turned it into hatred or retribution. She looked. Then, the oil from the sacrament of unction, the cross, the blessings given to her burned her, but also caressed her, and she received them with open heart. Then accepted to pray. It was enough for her then, and now she can go to the next step. She may fail and continue to be a terror of darkness, hurting and killing people, even innocent ones. That may well still be. Her heart is deeply hurt and has little reason to dare to accept a great gift. Tonight is the night that can change her life. And yours. If she accepts the calling, she will still be what she is now, a monster of the dark. But she will also be something else. And that happened to her, all that she is now, will be turned into a great gift, and her mission will be great for the Lord. Now, you need to trust her. And pray for her. She needs love and acceptance. You can give them. Underneath the darkness, there is a soul that has her own, unique beauty. A light covered her then and I woke up back in the basement. They were quite nervous, so to say, I do not know how much time passed. Gita took the light from his phone and went outside. He came back fast, somewhat scared. They are dead. Both of them are dead. Their guts are out, yep, that is her. A rumble was inside, I even heard the voice of Damien. Okay, so he was safe. But now what? The doctor grabbed me and put a gun to my head. You are going with me, Mon, he said. I will make it alive from here, but I need a warranty. Anger took over me and shouted, you are a real monster. Human life matters to you nothing. Only your profits. He looked at me, indeed, profits. But, there is something you should have noticed before. In life, we have no real choice. We can do not oppose the context our lives. We are forced things that we never thought possible. But yet, you make them, because you cannot avoid them. Yeah, right? And the Hippocrates Oath? He brought a superior, but also pretty dumb smile. I felt a deep, burning hatred for him, but then I remembered the smile of Alexandra and snapped out of it. Only the small light of 2 phones brought light in all that darkness. Meanwhile, as I found out later, Adrian arrived already. The place was in darkness, as the sun had already set and the lights were out. He saw Helena coming out of the basement of the building, dragging 2 bodies of heavy men. He also saw 2 other men dead, with their abdomens cut open, in the yard. Helena dragged those bodies, who seemed to be still alive back of the building, into the railway. Adrian followed her in fear and silence. She seems to use her old gestures of using invisible, ghost objects, on the railway area, even tied up some invisible ropes or cables. Then she got back and went in the basement. All this was done in complete, cold silence. She has noticed Adrian, looked at him, but said nothing. Still afraid, he decided to go after her, with a light from his phone. Downstairs, I have the dread I already knew. The light of the phone showed the figure of Helena, at the bottom of the stairs. I started to shake at her sight, especially because Alexandra suggests she might not do what is right. As I saw her whitish, cold eyes for a second, a deep shiver went on me. If she wanted, she could finish us all. Of just the bad people? I was held with a firm grip by the doctor. The meds in the system were still present, that made more weak and more vulnerable both to them, and to the monster close to us. It was clear they felt the same fear, probably worse than me. I heard Cougar scream, as he was put down, with his spine broken. He screamed in agony, then his arms and legs were broken as well. He kept screaming. Then I felt the grip of Helena's arm on my assailant, and I could barely keep myself from fainting of fear. In Helena was a cold, deep hatred and, it felt that, if I stood in her way, I shall be gone as well. I would not be the first time she hurt and even killed people who just stood in her way. The doctor started to scream, as his spine, his arms and his legs were broken. I took the doctor's phone and tried to bring light to what was happening. Helena went to the back, to Damien, who was conscious yet and screamed at her sight. She did some things there, as she removed the ropes that held him to the table, and whispered to him in her snaky voice, "You are alive now. But be careful, if you do not change your wicked habits, if your parents will still continue to teach them, tell them this, I shall come for you all. Got it?" Damien shook his head in terror. Helena let go of him and said, "Now go." He ran away and I came after him. I found Adrian and we both helped find the way out. Damien did not seem to be seriously hurt. Adrian broke the lock on the gate, so he was free to run out. Suddenly, They come back. The little demons. Flying around me, in circles. There was a sharp feeling of something I cannot truly describe. A mixture of intense fear and intoxication. I could find no other way than falling to my knees and pray to the Lord. Without him, I was powerless against them. I felt a deep hatred and a deep desire to terminate me. Right there and right now. I prayed, Lord, please, have mercy on me, the unworthy. I want to live. I am selfish and I want to live, I am bad, but I need you. Have mercy on me, I shall change. Please send Alexandra. After saying that, a gentle hand touched my shoulder and I instantly calmed down. I heard Alexandra saying, they are trying to scare you. They are not allowed to do more than this. It is okay. I shall stay with you until it ends. It is soon now. My sister Helena is on the right path. When she will be over, tell her both me and her mother are proud of her. In all the peace, I have dared to look into Alexandra's eyes and ask, yet, what is it, Helena? Does she know what she is? Alexandra replied, yet, this is not the best moment to ask this, but I shall tell you one thing, she is a very special form of vampire. Similar, in some ways, with the ones in Western Europe, but, in another way, very different from them. She can drink blood, enjoy it and benefit from it. But she mostly did not drink it, she used other ways of sustenance. She does not very well in daylight, but she can live in it. Now, please pray and let Helena do what she will do. Back outside, we saw Helena coming out of the basement, dragging the two men. She also brought them to the back, but not to the railway itself, with the others. She made some gestures with ghost objects and waited. We stood still for a few minutes, then a rumble came from the north. We saw nothing, but we heard it, it was the ghost train of Lysianu. When it reached our proximity, we heard the bones of the two gangsters being crushed by the train. Helena whispered to the doctor and Cougar, Satan has claimed your souls. At the same time, she brought together two ghost cables and electricity came into their bodies. The light bulbs of the lampposts in the yard ignited into light, but flickered. The train passed, then two men were burned by the current that came through the ghost cables. The bulbs started to give shine brightly more and more, up to the point when the eyes hurt when I looked at them. Then, one after the other, the bulbs exploded. The trains passed, Helena dropped the cables and it all went dark. Alexandra kissed the top of my head and left. After a few minutes of silence, we looked at Helena, who still stood there, like a statue, looking at us, and at the burned bodies of the two. She had an empty expression. Still shaken, I braced myself to go to her. I looked into her eyes. I smiled and said, well done. Your mother and Alexandra are proud of you, I was just told to transmit you that. Helena looked a little surprised, I could actually feel, deep inside her, an amazement she tried to control and keep out sight. It is okay, you are among friends. You can be less stiffy now. You are among friends. I took her hand again. She did not oppose this, but seemed still confused, somewhat. Welcome back to the good guys. And I did one of the most terrifying and most warm things I did so far in my life, I hugged her. She looked startled, so I whispered in joy, that is hug. Please hug me back, this is how people do. She, reluctantly, hugged me back, I never felt anything so weird, yet so existentially gratifying. I looked back into her eyes. She could not believe it herself, I guess. Father George came and talked to her a minute. I could hear him say to her, what you did tonight, if not truly Christian, but you seem to be on the right path. If you want, I shall guide you, as priest of Christ and a confessor. Help as for you know. But I shall not rush you, we can wait if you want. It felt a bit rushed, yet. She looked at us, and went out the gate. I told her, we know where you are. She stopped, looked at us awkwardly. Not menacing, not angry, not aggressive. My guess is that she just did not know what to do, so to say. And she need to be on her own private space. I cannot blame her at all. The police came, eventually. I said I had got a tip about the kidnapping in that area and that we witnessed a fight with a rival clan, and that those killed all the people there. I also mentioned the visit to the police earlier the same day. The incident made headlines several days, but Helena was never mentioned, we never said anything, nobody made a connection with the incident of Marcel that was starting to get forgotten. The Rumagush clan found a new leader in a few days, who started a war with another clan, who he thought responsible for the death of Cougar and the rest. The doctor was whitewashed by the media as a victim of a clan war. I quit my job in a few days, then started to look a new one, perhaps on a call center shall be available. It will be much lesser paid, but my conscience will be clearer. Not just that I promised Helena, or the Father George, but for myself first of all. I shall start a vlog on YouTube on political, social and economical issues, in Romania, of course, in the next days, as I am still known in the public eye and the incident is still fresh to the public. Of course, I shall speak nothing of Helena or the supernatural things like that, or urban legends of any kind in there. We waited a few days, to get some rest. I went to the lair of Helena for a few days, not close to the gate, but nearby. No sign of her, in the first days. Then, I saw the lights go out, in a familiar pattern. I left, to leave her some space, for now. So, that night, finally, came. We drove Father George to the area. After we parked, we got to Helena's place. Adrian stopped a bit and asked Father George, "Yet, can she confess? Isn't she dead?" Father George chuckled with a bit of anger. "She has a breath. A heartbeat. She can feel and relate like a living person. I have seen dead souls, they are very different. I am sure she counts very much as alive." And knocked at the gate. Adrian was feeling anxious, more than me. I guess I had got used to it, somehow. Father George was the calmest. He said he had experienced far more tougher situations. We knocked. Nothing happened, the first time. The second time we knocked, after a little time, the light went out. Pretty, Helena came out and opened the gate. Adrian trembled, but tried to look strong. I slowly caressed him on the hand. Helena was scary, as usual, but tonight, as she stayed silent, like the times before, she looked anxious herself, although in her own way. Her white eyes were not looking at us, like trying to avoid looking us in the eye. I have tried to give the best smile that was both sweet, but controlled and said, "Hello Helena. We have come, like we promised. Can we come in?" Helena looked at us in silence, tilting her head a little to the left, somewhat like dogs sometimes do. She moved away from the gate, allowing us to get it. "Thank you," I said. She closed the gate behind us, and I admit that moment made me and, especially Adrian, to get a little startled. The whole house and yard were in darkness. She opened the door and made us a sign to enter. In silence. We did, with all the fear we had. Inside was an old house, with old objects, many of them really antiquities. Little to no new objects. I guess Helena got rid of them after Nicolina died. It all felt like being at a wake of grandma or some aunt, years ago, as a child. For US readers, wakes are held in many parts of the world, including in here, in the home of the deceased, not at a funerary home. Relatives come and stay with the deceased, as lights were on. But, on this occasion, all light was out. Only little came from outside. Yeah, it felt like a wake where people sit with the dead in the dark, for some weird reason. In fact, the whole house seemed like an embalmed corpse put on display on such a wake. There were 3 rooms, in the middle there was a coffin, with the seals open. In rest, everything was neatly, almost formally taken care of. Like a museum or something. But that coffin showed that the person who lived in this house slept there, not in bed. This was confirmed later. In the last room, there was a bed, some old wooden chairs and some old, wooden table. Helena, kinda reluctantly, showed us to sit. I looked at her in the dark room, on the little light that came from outside. And I said to myself, yeah, this night shall nightmare fuel for years to come. But I am glad I am here. Since silence continued, I did my best to smile and asked, "So, Helena, how are you? Okay?" She did not reply at first, but, eventually she did, like she was a little shy and tired. "Okay, I guess." I did not know what to say, so I continued, a little proud of me, "You know, I kept my promise to you that I shall change. I left my job and now, I shall try to tell the actual truth on YouTube. About all I can. I am determined." Helena replied slowly, like she tried herself to find the best tone, while she avoided eye contact again. "Good for you." Father George opened the priest's briefcase and got a bottle of alcohol. He smiled and placed it on the table. "I have heard you enjoy strong spirits, like Palinka. So, I brought you some Anas and Raka, the one I myself enjoy." He waited some moments but, as Helena did not answer, he continued, "Could you be kind and bring some small glasses, please?" Helena went to the other room and brought Suica glasses. Father George gave us all some shot and we enjoyed it. It had a strong flavor, I admit, but I am not into strong drinks. We drank in silence, darkness, in fear and in hope. Eventually, Father George broke the silence gently. "Do you think you are ready? I am here to help you confess your sins. Do not worry, I shall help you. I know it is pretty difficult, unbelievable difficult. But, if you succeed, all your sins will be forgiven. No matter how hard they are. You will be free. I shall ask you and, if there is anything else, you can say it after the questions. Would you want to?" She looked reluctantly. Like she could not do it, but something in here would want to. You know what, said Father George. I shall say the prayers for the beginning of the sacrament. If you are no okay, you can always back off. Those are said before the confession itself. We try it. Is that okay? Helena looked at him and, finally whispered, okay. Father George said the prayer for all us present, placing the epitracheline on the head of Helena, then invited me and Adrian out. I felt somewhat anxiety to leave him alone with that monster, but I said a prayer and went out. Me and Adrian were silent for a while, then we started talking things like our bills, our long friendship, of how beautiful is the night without artificial light. An hour to pass? Until Father George came out. He seemed cheerful. We went to him and I asked, how did it was? He replied, you know that I cannot say what she said. But I can say it went well. She can be a real sweetheart, if she wants. We came in. The atmosphere, the feeling was mostly the same. Only that, in this wake, it was like, although there is sadness because of the loss, there is also peace. A bitter peace, but peace. Helena sit on her chair again, with the head slightly to the ground. I said, a little joyful, I heard it went well. Am I right? She looked at me, but this time replied faster, more clearer, more normal, more human. It seems so. I looked at her. Now, besides all the she was just an hour earlier, she was something else. She childlike, like a child ready to explore the world. And live. When caution and baby steps, but yet. Her cheekbones seem a little more visible, a little more lifelike. A little more like you see in a child. Yep, it seems now that she can be a sweetheart, if she wants. So, I dared to ask here, taking her hand, I guess we can now be friends. Is it okay for you? She looked at me childlike, and she giggled a little sweet, yes, I think so. Ruxandra out.